In continuation of the previous lessons, in this lesson I will show you how you can create openings for doors and windows. The window's height will be 1.2 meters, and the sill height will be 1 meter. As for the doors, they will be 2.2 meters high. First, I will activate the Rectangle tool to create the necessary rectangles at the top of all door and window openings. The rectangles will be created by simply clicking on one corner of the wall and then on the opposite corner. You should be careful to create the rectangles only when they appear blue, so they will be created parallel to the XY plane. Once I am done creating the rectangles, notice that the program automatically creates surfaces to complete the geometry. I will select those surfaces I do not need and delete them. Creating door openings is a simple process, so I will start with them. I will activate the Push-Pull tool and click on one of the rectangular surfaces I previously created. I will move the cursor downward and press the Ctrl key once to change the direction of the sides. Since the height of the door should be 2.2 meters and the height of the walls is 3 meters, I will type the number 0.8 and press Enter. Once I pressed Enter, the opening was created. I will repeat the same process for the other two door openings. Now that I have created the door openings, I will select the top faces and right-click on them to change their direction. So, I will select Reverse Faces. The next step is to create the window openings. At first, I will activate the Push-Pull tool again, and I will extrude the rectangular faces by clicking on the underside. Then I will move the cursor downward and type the number 0.8 to define the height of the extrusion. I will repeat this process for all the window openings. I will also change the direction of the faces where necessary. At this point, I will create the sill for each window. To do that, I will create rectangular surfaces at the bottom of the openings. So, I will activate the Rectangle tool and join their opposite corners. Again, you should be careful on which plane you create the rectangles. Notice that as I create the rectangles, a wall is automatically created. This is extremely convenient for me since it saves me the trouble of doing it manually. Now, I will switch to the left view by clicking on the left icon in the Views toolbar. Next, I will create a reference line to define the sill height of the window. So far, I have shown you the Protractor tool, with which you create reference lines at a specific angle. Above this tool, there is the Tape Measure tool, with which you can measure a distance and also create horizontal and vertical reference lines. I'll activate the Tape Measure tool, and then I will click on the bottom edge of the wall and move the cursor upwards. Since the sill height is 1 meter, I will type the number 1 and press Enter. At this point, I have the window boundaries, but I can't use the reference lines in combination with the Push-Pull tool to create the openings, so I have to create regular lines first. To achieve that, I'll activate the Rectangle tool to create a rectangular surface. Now I will activate the Push-Pull tool and click inside the rectangular region. I should mention here that apart from adding volumes, the Push-Pull tool can also subtract volumes. To create the opening, I will move the cursor inward until the On Face highlight appears. Once On Face appears, I will click and notice the opening has been created. I will repeat the same process for the next window. First, I will activate the Tape Measure tool to create a reference line at a height of 1 meter. Then I will use the Rectangle tool to create the opening boundaries, and finally I will use the Push-Pull tool to create the opening of the window. While I will be creating the rest of the window openings, I should mention that you can also click on the edge up to which you want to remove the volume in case On Face doesn't appear. After creating all the door and window openings, I will orbit the scene so you can see the result better. Before we finish the lesson, I will create one more door opening and one more window opening. First and foremost, I will change the view to front by clicking on the front icon in the Views toolbox. Now I will create all the reference lines I need with the Tape Measure tool. The door will be created at 1.2 meters from the wall on the right, so I will click on the outer edge of the wall, move the cursor to the left, and create the first reference line at 1.2 meters. The width of the door opening is 1 meter, so I will create the next reference line 1 meter to the left of the previous one. The window will be 0.90 meters to the left from the door, so I will create another reference line at 0.9 meters to the left from the last one I created. The window's width is 1.6 meters, so I will create one more reference line at 1.6 meters. All that remains now is to create the reference lines I will use for the heights. With the Tape Measure tool active, I will create a reference line from the top edge of the wall at a distance of 0.8. For the window opening, I will create another reference line from the lower edge of the wall at a distance of 1 meter. Since I created all the reference lines I need, I will activate the Rectangle tool and create two rectangular surfaces, one for the window opening and one for the door opening. Now I will activate the Push-Pull tool to create the openings. As you saw, you can create doors and windows directly on the walls. To erase the reference lines, I will activate the Eraser tool, click, and drag over them with the mouse. Alternatively, I could select them and press Delete to remove them from the scene.